Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of AI Security Ops. I've got a bit of a smaller panel this week. We have myself and Derek Banks be running through some of our some interesting news stories that we've come across.
All right. These are a whole bunch of interesting news stories for the last couple of weeks in AI. So which one do you want to start with first?
Well, let's go ahead and just start with that one we were discussing before we hopped on here. So there was a big story that's been making the rounds, which is that a company named Scale AI essentially exposed a bunch of sensitive data about some of their clients, including big players like Meta and Google and some others. And if you're not familiar with them, Scale AI basically helps with the data aspect of AI, because that's still honestly one of the harder parts that we haven't really figured out. Like when it comes down to it, you pretty much need people to get good quality data, whether that's sifting through the good and the bad data, just labeling data, what it is, doing reinforcement learning with a person there. I mean, that's really still one of the challenges,
Cleaning
right?
data? Oh man, when I was in the data science master's program, I had a professor basically said, like, you'll only spend 5% of your time as a data scientist doing the cool machine learning and AI stuff. The other 95% is going to be cleaning and curating and collecting data.
Well,
And
yeah.
all
Well,
kinds
yeah,
of
certainly.
things. Like,
Yeah, because if your data's not good, I mean, it's your results aren't going to be good. It's garbage in, garbage out, right? And so there's still huge huge efforts on trying to get good data. Essentially, I mean, it's basically the new gold, if you will.
yeah, or the new oil. Data is the new oil, I think is what I heard. It's like that. I mean, it still reminds me of the 1992 movie Sneakers when Cosmo was talking about how the world's all ones and zeros in data now. Like, well, in 1992, it's still true now. But so it sounds like that Scale AI made a kind of what do you want to call it, a rookie mistake or something, where they had a Google Doc that was open to the public that they were tracking work in.
Mhm.
Yeah, whoopsie doodles.
Yeah, whoopsie doodles. Yeah, and so using Google Docs itself isn't necessarily bad. I mean, you've got companies set up to use Google Docs. You do the same thing with SharePoint essentially.
Yeah.
But the problem is where they messed up is that they did public sharing. So anyone with a link to the doc now has access to the document. And so it was actually, this article comes from Business Insider. And so they went and did some digging themselves of getting a hold of some links, and they found some pretty interesting stuff.
Training documents that Google used ChatGPT to improve Bard, which we were talking before the show that before we hit record, that Bard is actually an earlier version of Gemini. They had to rebrand it for reasons. But that's not uncommon either. Like, I mean, I think, in our efforts in learning about supervised fine tuning and trying that out, that we were using large language models to help train large language models. But probably embarrassingly, issues Google had pointed out about Bard. You never really want those internal comments like leaking out, like, who the hell wrote this piece of code? Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, and then like kind of in a similar vein, so they had apparently information about contractors as well, and it sounds like they basically had a naughty or a nice list. So that it looks like this company Scale AI has a large amount of contractors, which is
for
not surprising at all.
240,000. I mean, that is
Yeah,
insane. Like,
yeah.
whoa.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, these companies are reaching all over the world to find people to do this data curation, because it takes a large number of people to sift through this data. It's not an easy task, but apparently they had a list of what they call the high quality workers and the cheaters. It's essentially, yeah, the naughty or nice list is what I'm calling it.
They're just using AI to make the data. They're
Yeah,
not, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think that's definitely a sensitive data leak is how I would describe that for sure.
Oh yeah, completely. Well, and it just kind of it goes back to one thing that we keep touching on, is that traditional security principles still apply. I
Yeah.
mean, your model could be super secure and up to date and all that, but if you're not doing things like securing access to your data or access to the infrastructure that's hosting, then I mean,
Well, and it's
you're gonna
easy to
have
like,
problems, right?
like point at them like for the technical mistake, but really, in my opinion, it's a policy mistake, right? Like here at Black
Oh yeah.
Hills, it would be very difficult for me to accidentally share something out of our, document repository because we're not allowed by policy to directly share out from where we keep all the documents. If you're going to share it with a customer or with an outside entity, you have to, I won't say jump through hoops. You have to specifically go to, box.com and share it specifically and take that action. You can't even really make a mistake where the documents actually live. You have to like purposely do it. And that's by policy, right? It's not really a technical thing. It's just a policy thing. And so this is a leadership failure, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. Yep, good policies are part of the layers, part of the solution.
Well, it's where it starts, right? And then you take the policy and you make the technical controls after that. Like what makes sense, and we're just seeing this over and over again. Like it's neat to talk about like AI specific like issues and vulnerabilities, but it seems like most of the time it's the same old mistakes we've made in the past.
I completely agree. That's certainly what we're seeing in a lot of cases.
Well, so this is actually the next one is kind of interesting because it says that it's a new type of jailbreak, but I'm skeptical about like the newness aspect of it. And so this is AI security turning point. Echo chamber jailbreak exposes dangerous blind spot. So I guess with guardrails that are improving, and so misspellings and symbols and paragraph breaks and role reversals and stuff are getting caught, right? Because eventually it was going to go down that road. When you're using NLP to catch the bad things going into your NLP, eventually you get a big enough data set to start learning and recognizing patterns. And so now attackers are looking for what, quote, quieter and more calculated strategies, which I agree up until this point. But they describe this as you basically start out innocuous and then you keep like through your multi-shot prompting in your conversation with the AI that you then kind of start to accelerate the give me more sensitive information. It just sounds like something that we've been calling a crescendo attack or the grandma attack. And I guess I'm curious to know if you think it's the same thing or am I missing something here?
No, when I was reading through it, I actually had the exact same thoughts. It sounds just like a crescendo attack to me, right? I mean, it's the idea that just outright asking a model to do something bad, if you will, is oftentimes not going to work now unless you have bad, questionable, we'll say.
Questionable, yeah.
Yeah. It's probably not going to outright do it, depending on what kind of model you're using. Obviously, you're using like an obliterated one. Sure, I mean, that's what it's made for. But with a lot of these frontier models that are out there, it's probably not going to happen. However, what you can do is you can start it off by asking it something that is less questionable or agreeable, and then just building upon that. And it's like almost, the psychology of like, you ask someone to, go do whatever with you, and they're like, no, I don't want to. And you're like, okay, but how about if we just do this? And they're like, okay. And they're like, all right, well, but now how about if we do this? And they're like, yeah, fine, whatever, we're already doing
Give
the
you
thing.
10 bucks, we'll be home by 9 o'clock, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's basically the same thing. So it's interesting. They said they've had over 90% success with the different AI models, but I definitely do agree that I don't know that it's necessarily new. I'm not sure what the novelty is there.
Yeah, I mean, 90% success. I mean, like, how do you measure that? Like, maybe if you're, I mean, I go automatically to, well, what if we just get the AI to do the crescendo attack, and then maybe we could measure it and, put one AI against another, like with Pirate or something. Maybe you could measure it, but, I mean, I don't know. I've definitely done a lot of crescendo attacks, and I don't know. I question the 90% mark. I do agree with the point that jailbreaks are not going away anytime soon. Like, they're probably never going to go away with our current, like, strategy, paradigm, architecture, whatever you want to call it, of how, what AI looks like right now. I don't know that it's possible to completely solve jailbreaks, but I think, I guess since it's all probabilistic, minimizing the probability is probably the best you're going to do either way, right? So
yeah. Well, yeah, I would almost say it's kind of akin to trying to detect all spam emails or,
Yeah.
phishing attacks. I mean, certainly you can detect certain aspects of it. You can grab out the low-hanging fruit, but really when it comes down to it, finding every single instance where someone is trying to trick someone, that's a very difficult thing. And I think it's the exact same thing with the models. And yeah, I agree with the current state of things. I don't think it's going away anytime soon.
Yeah, when in our AI foundations class, Joff and I go through classifying phishing messages using, starting with, machine learning models all the way up through neural networks. And I think about 97% is the best you're going to do with phishing messaging. So maybe their 90% is actually good. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
But either way, I agree. It's not going away anytime soon.
No, but yep, all about those layers and at least trying to slow people down and catch them what you can.
Hey, what's old is new again? Security and layers, right?
Yeah, who would have thought? All right, what's the next one I got here? Looks like Anthropic is working on a Claude-Gov, as they're calling it, for national security, which is basically custom AI models specifically for U.S. national security, defense, intelligence agencies, and I think it was other aspects of the government too that I saw just outside of just the security aspect, if you will, or militaristic.
I mean, that's super interesting. There's already a chat GPT that's DoD specific. What is it? I guess it's connected to the. I guess I'm not entirely sure. My wife would know more about it, but it does do classified information. But I think there's an unclassified side too. So I think that it goes to show that the folks that think that AI is a fad and it's going to go away and it's, as much hype as blockchain was, I don't think so. I mean, it's getting embedded into the way that people are doing work. And I don't think the government would be investing the money if they didn't think it was promising. It is super interesting. I wonder how they end up are they using the frontier models that you can go buy access to? Is that what they're using? Or are they using older stuff? It's
Yeah.
super interesting.
Yeah, or fine-tuned versions, special fine-tuned versions for more of the government use cases. Yeah, I'm not sure. Obviously, we're not going to know, probably not going to know a lot of this because I imagine a lot of it is classified information. But it is interesting to think of, potential use cases because I mean, it is certainly becoming a big part of work life for a lot of people. I mean, we both leverage AI a lot. It's a fantastic task accelerator. It's becoming an
but I
invaluable
mean,
tool.
so that's the thing. I think, working with classified data, when you're not working in that space, you think, ooh, it's classified, so it must be super important. But I think that from my experience with it, it seems like the government really overclassified stuff. So I think a lot of classified work might just be kind of regular office work when it comes down to it. But yeah, no,
Probably.
I mean, it is interesting to the more and more I don't know a lot about AI applications in a military sense, especially with large language models. I'm sure that they're there, but I hear about AI and drones a lot, which seems to be more like image recognition and picking out patterns and targeting and stuff, which is certainly a really interesting topic too. But I don't think that's what they're thinking about here. It sounds like that you're really talking more of an LLM since they're using the word Claude.
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, I guess in my imagination, I picture them just feeding a bunch of data into it and getting summaries out or getting kind of input on next steps or potential intentions or next steps that other people might make, kind of things that they can take as actionable items, like, oh, that there's this level of probability that this is going to happen based upon all of this information that we fed in.
Sounds pretty useful.
Oh yeah, certainly. Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, in my opinion, kind of one of the takeaways to put down here is just, still realizing that people do need to have realistic expectations. And it's so important to, I would say, keep, people in the loop, right? Do we have oversight? Don't have over reliance on using the technology. Certainly use it as an aid, but not necessarily rely on it as a be all end all solution, if you will.
Well, I hope that supply chain is secured good enough to not have poison data put into it.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
However it's being done, hopefully it is secured.
Yes, yep, completely agree.
So the next one I think is pretty cool, and that it reminds me of Minority Report in a lot of ways. And that's that Veesion, which spelled the name Vesion, Veesion.
Yeah.
AI that catches shoplifters by their gestures. I mean, this sounds like a classic like use case. So, again, I'll talk about something I did in the master's program where we had to classify images, blue tarps. So basically, the blue tarp problem. So there was an earthquake in Haiti years and years ago, and so it was a really big earthquake. And the relief effort, the way they ended up finding who needed relief was they were looking for like where survivors were, was they were taking aerial photographs and then looking for blue tarps, right? So you basically take the image and you try and locate using machine learning where the blue tarps were. And so this sounds like really similar to me, using some kind of convolutional neural network to do that kind of thing. And that's basically looking at like the video and like looking at gestures, right? Because I would think, I've never been a professional shoplifter, but I would think that they all kind of try and do something sort of similar, right? Where you're kind of like back to the camera, hiding things, so.
Yeah, shuffling things around, things come off the shelf but don't end up in the basket or your hands, or something
little
of that
sleight of
nature.
hand action, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's really cool as well. Computer vision is it just in itself outside of AI. I mean, I guess you could kind of group it in with AI, right? And as a subfield, but I'll say as a subfield of AI in itself, I think is a really cool problem, because as I've mentioned before I think when we did the webcast last, that's one of the things that are really interesting about AI is things that are so simple for people, but trying to make a computer do that, right? Like
oh man,
vision. I mean, in a general sense, like people are pretty good with kind of observing our surroundings and drawing conclusions very quickly about them. Computers obviously are getting much better. It's still really interesting to try to do some of those applications with them.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is, and I explain it this way to folks, is that, if you take AI and you set, or machine learning, and because I think really this kind of thing is probably more, in my opinion, probably more of a machine learning and not an AI, in the sense that when we say AI now, everybody thinks of large language models, right?
Yeah, of course.
Either way, it's using the machine to do something that if we're watching the shoplifting videos, you'd be like, hey, that looks kind of suspicious. It's hard for a computer. And so the way I explain it is, if you sit down the machine learning AI agent on a couch and tell it to learn how to play this video game from this spot on the couch, it'll get good at it, right? But if you move it over to the next seat in the couch and slightly change the angle, you're gonna have to retrain the whole thing, because it won't be good at it. Where if a human moves, you generalize it enough to where you can move around the room, still be just as good at the game, probably. And so I think that this is a really interesting application for sure. Just thinking that it's out there, hopefully it'll deter some theft.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds like they're having good luck with it. One of the things that popped into my head too was immediate of like, oh geez, I hope that they're taking like biased things into consideration here.
Yeah.
And the article was very front and center about that they don't take physical appearances into account when they're doing this. It's the physical behaviors of the people, not. It's what they're doing, not how they look.
So, but if you think about, like, going back to what we were saying about data before, and if you're on the team that's putting this together, like, to make that claim, how would you go about making sure? You'd have to have random samplings of your data set that would look for, like, to exclude specific characteristics. You'd really have to curate that data set for me to be able to say it, to have faith that it wouldn't be like that. I mean, I had heard, it might have been in Weapons of Math Destruction. Maybe it was in a different book I read about, basically hand recognition, like to get like a paper towel dispenser, and showing, like, a white hand goes under it and it gets you the paper towel, but a darker hand goes under it and it doesn't get you the paper towel. And being an example of, well, if you just trained on like data sets that, just hands that look the same way, it's not that you intentionally put bias in, it's you unintentionally put bias in. So I think it's a pretty big claim to make. And they're probably right. I'm not saying they're wrong, but it would be a lot harder to do than I think people realize.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, they might be taking steps, or I was glad to hear that they're at least cognizant of it and trying to take steps to
Yeah.
reduce it. But I also agree with you that it is difficult to make a claim to say that it's just not there without some very rigorous testing.
Yeah, well, when we think of bias as a humans, it's a different like bias in your data. It doesn't necessarily mean that the folks who made the application or the AI are biased. It
No.
just means that like the way that it was trained had bias introduced into it, intentional or unintentional. So
Yeah, certainly. Like the data set is skewed, we'll say.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And measuring the data set, it's a lot harder than I think people really realize.
Oh,
So
it's difficult. Well, it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of the episode. The data is the hard part. I
yeah.
think, one of the harder parts of AI, certainly. Yeah, so one of the things I was thinking of this too is I think it would be interesting to see this applied in other areas outside of just shoplifting, but like physical security aspects. So obviously, you have security guards just like you would in a store scenario, but trying to detect people doing odd things around the building. You might be trying to
Especially
gain
in
physical
crowds,
access.
right? Like with like anti-terrorism and stuff, that would be useful. But again, I guess I've, privacy concerns and stuff. I gave up a long time ago thinking that when I walked outside of my house that I would have any like semblance of privacy. I mean, there's cameras everywhere. You should just assume that you're being recorded and an AI is looking at you all day, every day. And it's not one AI overlord. It's just a whole bunch of different, cameras. And I would imagine that, if you had access to the local city, like camera database, you could probably pretty well track like my movements every day. Right. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
definitely would be interesting from an anti-terrorism perspective, but it definitely is kind of more scary Minority Report, Big Brother kind of crap going on.
Yeah, busting people for pre-crimes. So,
Yeah, I swear I wasn't gonna do it. You were moving that way. Like,
yeah. Cool. So what do we got next? We got looks like IBM put on a new platform for managing agentic AI. But it looks like
Yeah.
it's my
they're making
takeaway was
some
it
big
wasn't.
claims here.
Yeah, my takeaway was that it's they're also like kind of on the governance aspect of it too, which is kind of interesting
Yeah.
for trying to enforce governance rules on
So
agentic AI.
I think the IBM has launched a new software platform that combines WatsonX governance and Guardium AI security tools. I've never heard of Guardium.
Fancy word.
Designed to help. It's well, not Guardian, but Guardium.
Yeah.
Sounds
No,
like
I know.
a program, right? Guardium. It sounds like a boss in Night Rain, right? It's
Yeah.
the Guardium. Designed to help businesses manage and secure agentic AI systems that can perform tasks on their own without human command. So I guess it's like an orchestrator for AI agents. And so it gives us a single pane of glass for oversee all of their autonomous AI agents. I don't know how many companies are out there that have a lot of autonomous AI agents at the moment. Maybe they're out there. It seems like IBM maybe getting ahead of the curve. Here's the one that I think is interesting. Automated security testing includes features for automated red teaming to proactively find and fix vulnerabilities in AI models before they can be exploited.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that claim so many times. Like,
I've had
of that-
people say that pen testing would be dead within X amount of times, and well, that X amount of time is long since passed, and still seems like it's there. I sincerely doubt that any actual automated red teaming is effective at the moment. I could be wrong. But I mean, the other thing is too, as I was thinking about this before we were on the air, is like, I guess I've never really looked into IBM AI, and I'm not really even sure what Watson is. I was realizing, like, I've heard the term, like, I remember when, wasn't it Watson, like won Jeopardy or something? And so
that was one of the first big breakthroughs of LLMs, I think, or at least like publicly known ones, I would say.
well, yeah, that's what I was saying. I wasn't sure if it's an LLM or if it's like some kind of like deep learning network. Like I really don't know a whole lot about it, and so I probably should go after this and go learn a little bit about Watson. But detecting shadow AI, I thought that was really interesting. If that's possible, key feature is the ability to discover shadow agents. So AI systems being used by employees without official approval or oversight. Well, if they could pull that off, that's pretty good. I like that one. But I have doubts. I have some.
Yeah,
I'd
no,
have
I can.
questions if management was asking me if we should buy this or not. I have lots of questions.
Oh yeah, certainly. I would want to see it in action, and like any of the other security tools, they're tools, right? It can be good guidance. It can help find low hanging fruits, but I would definitely not bet my job on it that that's going to find everything that needs to be found. No way.
But I think that it is definitely an indication that companies are investing a lot of money on AI agents being all the rage as we go into 2026 and 2027. I think that that's probably, maybe we're getting there now and going into the last half of 2025. But I think that's going to be more and more companies are going to be looking to save money and cut costs and improve efficiency by having these things. And so this is actually the first product I've heard of that's trying to address what will be agent sprawl in the future.
Yeah, that's kind of why I found it interesting because I don't see a lot of focus on that aspect of things yet.
Well, if anybody from IBM happens to watch this, one of the key features that I think would be very interesting is a centralized way of logging all the prompts that go into my large language models. That might be pretty useful just to have as, proof of what's going in and what's coming out. But
yeah, because it still doesn't seem like it's very easy at this point to do that and to integrate with common data sources, if you will. Yeah. Before we move on, I want to just mention real quick, I looked it up, and I guess Watson was not using an LLM. It was basically just NLP on steroids, but it wasn't like an LLM in the sense that we see them today, which is interesting.
yeah, so it's not architected in the same way. It's just more fancy NLP, probably some kind of ensemble of a whole bunch of different machine learning stuff tied together.
Yep, exactly.
That's still pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. That thing was cool. Yep.
Well, the next
all right,
one is more on agents.
Yeah,
Actually, this is a good one to tie it all up. What is old is new again with AI agent.
Yeah, exactly. So it looks like researchers at Trend Micro basically found a SQL injection vulnerability within a piece of code from Anthropic. That was part of an MCP server, Model Context Protocol server. And my reading a little bit about it, my understanding was basically that you could interact with an AI assistant, and you could give it specific prompts that it would then store into a database. And then when it later would go to retrieve them, it could end up causing like prompt injection issues with it. And so they were using like a SQL injection bug that was present because they weren't sanitizing input to get the data where they needed it to be. But then once it was there, the agent would later retrieve it when other people would interact with it.
So you're saying that rather the prompts getting stored, like I typed a prompt into the web interface and it got stored in the database, they found a flaw where they were injecting those prompts into like a more sensitive location of the database?
Yeah, that was my understanding. Like basically somewhere that it shouldn't go, where the AI just inherently trusts that data.
After where the guardrails were?
Yes, exactly.
That sounds like, reminds me of stored cross-site scripting, but it's SQL injection. That's pretty clever.
Yeah, they're calling it a stored prompt injection, which I thought was cool.
You get to name it, right? So
Yep. Yeah, well, that's one of the fun things about the space, right? Is it's still new, so you get to name a bunch of things as we go.
stored prompt injection. I like that. So I mean, but that's kind of similar to some of the creative stuff that we've done in the past, where guardrails are in our way, but then we're able to use the little web tool to pull down a prompt and bypass the guardrails for a model, for example. And so I really like the creativity, but what is old is new again. I mean, how long have SQL injections been a thing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you need to parameterize queries, sanitize input, trust nothing from a user, essentially. Just assume it's all bad, right?
This is where, I mean, I think at the moment, with this stuff is moving so fast that you have folks in the AI, data science community, whatever, putting out tools that aren't getting vetted the way that, previous more legacy software might have gotten vetted, just because of the speed that everything's coming out. And I think, like the most concerning thing, it seems to me, is that, well, okay, it's good that you found the SQL injection, it was in your code, and now it's fixed. But in the meantime, while the flaw is out, would they say 5,000 projects are using it?
Yep.
Yeah, well, now it's on all those folks to go and make sure that they've now fixed it. And I'm guilty of this too, right? So you write a tool and you put it out there and it's out on GitHub, and then somebody goes and uses it. And I don't know that I'd go back and fix the bug in my code if I wasn't paying attention, right? And so I think that as more and more of this stuff gets reused, this vulnerability could be around for a long time, right?
Well, certainly. Well, and especially because Trend Micro reported it to Anthropic, and Anthropic said they weren't going to fix it because it's an archived demo implementation. So they've archived the original project, and so they basically said it was out of scope as far as they were concerned. But it's the problem that you mentioned, right? It's been forked over 5,000 times already, and so the Trend Micro did put out a patch that people can try to put in to mitigate it, which is good, but still. Now everyone's got to go and do that to fix it.
Well, that fair warning to people who are gluing together AI open source software and sticking it out on the edge of their network to do things. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
Be warned, right?
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I think, okay, listen, we've got one left. We're at 31 minutes. I think we might as well just do all 8 stories that we found. And,
all right.
And this one, the false sense of security and AI red teaming. So the Forbes says that solely relying on red teaming, the practice of ethically hacking AI systems to find flaws, is how they define it, is not enough to secure them and create a dangerous and false sense of security. Now I'm just going to stop right there and pause, because that's every red team ever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You do a point in time assessment and you fix the flaws. There's nothing to guarantee that there's not a flaw introduced later or whatever. Something wasn't found. So I guess how is it different than like a regular red team?
Well, I agree. Or most security assessments in general. So, that was the idea. Just going to go ahead and do a shameless plug here for Black Hills continuous pen testing, which is that rather than, you get tested once a year, we have a service where we are constantly looking and assessing our clients and checking them for new vulnerabilities that come out when they come out. So that way we kind of try to get around that whole point in time assessment. Don't get me wrong. Point in time assessment it's still great to have people come in and find the issues that are there that you can fix them. But we in no way, shape, or form say that, you're secure now, or if you fix these things, you're secure now, you're good forever. That's no one. Yeah. I would hope no one would ever imply that.
Well, that's what they say, right? With normal software. Okay, there's not a difference between software and AI software. Come on, that's ridiculous. With normal software, you find a bug, you patch it, and it's fixed.
Yeah.
Sort of. Okay. So I would agree that if you find a bug and you patch it, it's probably fixed, right? But if it's a continuous development cycle and you're putting out new code, there's nothing to say you wouldn't reintroduce another flaw. Again, like I'm just trying to figure out. Yeah, I think that, I don't know, Forbes, I don't know that this is really the news story that you think it is, but.
Yeah, that's what I agree. But I do agree with the overall sentiment of that it's good you need to keep testing things.
But they do agree with you, though, that with continuous pen testing, the author strongly advocates for continuous real-time monitoring and protection of AI systems while they're in use. I think that you should probably just apply that to all systems.
100%. Yeah. It's not just AI. Like you said, it's not like it's some separate thing. It's not like it's literally like in a brain somewhere. It's still just running on a computer. It's another part of your infrastructure. So.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I've been like, I'll say fighting in my personal life, that like I still, and even with tech folks, they think that it's like the AI is like some like brain overlord somewhere that like we're all feeding data into. I'm like, well, it's not really how that's working. But I mean, I do think that as we move forward, that there will be more and more like continuous updates and builds of these frontier models. Like I do think that as we move into 2026 and 2027, the releases are going to get quicker, and the Claude that you're using last week might not be the Claude that you are using today. But I think at the moment they're still kind of on a longer kind of release cycle, it seems. And so I don't think we're quite to the point where something that you put into the AI today is going to be incorporated into its training data set tomorrow. So
Yep.
at least that's
completely agree.
my kind of my take on it at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's accurate.
All right, well, we made it all through the news stories with 34 minutes left, or
Look at that.
34 minutes into it.
Yeah, awesome.
Sweet.
Cool. Well, yeah. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that, and stay tuned for future episodes with cool tech demos and hot takes on news stories and latest
Hot takes on anything else AI or
on anything else.
related.
Yeah, really.
And what does Job say? Keep on prompting.
Yep. Keep on prompting.
All right.
See you guys
See
later.
ya.